The true American horror isn't always a ghost. Sometimes it's a creature of pure, blasphemous flesh. The legend of the Jersey Devil begins in 1735, with a curse that took physical form. It was born to Mother Leeds, a woman who, upon learning she was pregnant with her 13th child, cursed the unborn baby, screaming that the child should be the devil. The birth was a gruesome nightmare. The child emerged seemingly normal, but within minutes it transformed. Its face lengthened into a horse-like snout, horns sprouted from its head, leather wings stretched from its back, and its hands and feet morphed into razor-sharp claws. With a terrifying shriek, it thrashed around the room, attacking the midwife before flying up the chimney and disappearing into the dense, isolating pine barrens of southern New Jersey. The creature's reign of terror had begun. For centuries, this cryptid has haunted the region, documented in historical records, police reports, and terrified eyewitness accounts. It is described as a bipedal creature, standing 6 feet tall with a horse or goat-like head, long thin arms, cloven hooves, and a pair of massive leathery bat wings. Its cry is said to be the most chilling sound in North America, a combination of a blood-curdling scream, a high-pitched hiss, and a spine-tingling squawk. One of the most intense periods of terror occurred in January 1909. For 1 week, the creature appeared almost daily across South Jersey, triggering mass panic. People barricaded their doors, schools closed, and factories shut down. Police officers reported shooting at the winged beast only for the bullets to pass through harmlessly. The creature left behind bizarre two-toed tracks in the snow, stretching for miles across rooftops, impossible for any normal animal to make. A postmaster in the town of Haddonfield claimed the creature landed on his roof and let out a sound more terrible than anything I ever heard. Imagine driving home alone late at night, along one of the narrow, dark roads that cut through the pinelands. Your headlights barely cut through the oppressive darkness. Suddenly, your car's engine stalls. Silence. Then you hear it, a high-pitched, inhuman scream from the trees, followed by the deep, frantic flap, flap, flap of massive wings. You look up, and briefly illuminated by the weak moonlight, you see a towering shadow with horns, descending towards your vehicle. You realize you are not just alone. You are being hunted by a piece of American history that should not exist. The Jersey Devil's flight is a primal fear, the terror of the unknown in the wilderness, the horror of a family curse brought to life, and the disturbing reality that some monsters are born right next door. And in the Pinelands, people know that sometimes a shadow flying across the moon is not just a bird, it's a warning. The true horror is often not the monster itself, but the knowledge it brings. In 1966, the small, seemingly idyllic town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, became the epicenter of a terrifying year-long siege by a winged omen known as the Mothman. It blurred the line between cryptid folklore and horrifying prophetic terror. The first warnings were subtle, whispers of strange lights and unsettling movements near the abandoned World War II-era TNT plant, a vast, isolated complex already heavy with local rumors. But the terror cemented itself on November 15, 1966. 2 young couples were driving past the main gate when they saw it, a massive, dark figure standing in the shadows. It was approximately 7 feet tall, with huge, powerful wings folded behind its back. The most disturbing feature was its face, or lack thereof. It seemed to have no discernible head or neck. Instead, 2 large, glowing, deeply unsettling red eyes were set directly into its chest area. Terrified, the couple sped away, pushing their car past 100 miles per hour, but the creature spread its enormous leathery wings, often described as those of a giant moth or a monstrous angel, and effortlessly chased their car, keeping pace without struggling. It let out a chilling, electric shriek, a sound that drove the couples to the brink of hysteria, before finally veering away over the treetops. The sightings multiplied rapidly. Over the next 13 months, the Mothman was spotted over 100 times, always at night, always causing paralyzing fear. People described a creature of impossible strength, demonstrating unnatural speed, The fear wasn't just in its grotesque appearance, but in its purpose. It never truly attacked. It merely appeared and observed near places where tragedy was about to strike. It turned the local environment into a source of constant, paralyzing dread. One farmer reported driving home and seeing the creature perched silently on the roof of his barn, its red eyes fixed on him. Another witness claimed to have been approached by the creature late at night, only to have it vanish in a puff of cold air, leaving behind a profound sense of doom. The entire community lived under an invisible shadow, knowing that the winged sentinel was watching, but never knowing why. The constant low-level anxiety began to fracture the town's sanity. People stopped going out after dark. Whispered rumors replaced open conversation. They were living in a state of suspended terror. The tension culminated on December 15, 1967. For months, locals had discussed a shared feeling of impending doom. On that fateful evening, the massive Silver Bridge, the economic and social lifeline connecting Point Pleasant to Ohio, suddenly and violently collapsed during rush-hour traffic. The structural failure was catastrophic and immediate, plunging cars and people into the freezing Ohio River. 46 people lost their lives in the disaster. In the chaotic aftermath, investigators questioned the collapse, but the local population knew the truth was darker. The Mothman had been there for a year, warning them, its presence a dark symbol of the coming catastrophe. Its presence wasn't the disaster. Its presence was the prophecy of the disaster. The Mothman's warning is a terrifying case study in prophetic horror. It leaves us with a profound, chilling question. What is more terrifying? A monster that kills you, or a monster that stands by and watches while something you can't stop? A bridge collapse, a natural disaster, a sudden illness takes your life. The Mothman is the terrifying shadow of inevitable doom, a red-eyed sentinel that reminds us some tragedies are destined to happen, and all you can do is witness the silent winged approach. The town of Point Pleasant survived the tragedy, but the ominous figure continues to fly in the darker corners of American folklore, a silent witness to fate. This is not a tale of a stray animal. It is a story of justice twisted into eternal spiritual torment. The legend of the Black Cat of Newgate is one of London's darkest secrets, dating back to the brutal era of Newgate Prison, where public execution was a common spectacle and vengeance took a physical form. Our story begins with a man named James, unjustly accused and swiftly sentenced to hang at Tyburn. James was a man of fierce pride and deep, volatile anger. As he stood on the gallows, facing the jeering crowds and the men who had sealed his fate, the sheriff, the judge, and the executioner, James did not beg for mercy. Instead, he uttered a profound, searing curse that he would return not in human form, but as something small, something subtle, something they could not defend against, to exact his vengeance. They hanged him, and soon, the curse began its silent work. Not long after the execution, a massive, unnaturally large black cat began appearing near the prison and, chillingly, near the homes of the officials involved in James's death. This was no ordinary feline. Its coat was jet black, seemingly absorbing all light, and its eyes, the eyes were its signature. They burned with a cold, malevolent intelligence and an unsettling, focused hatred that was utterly human. The cat didn't scratch or hiss like a normal animal. It stalked. It watched. It appeared where it shouldn't be, crouched on the judge's mantelpiece staring at him as he slept, sitting silently at the foot of the sheriff's bed, or following the executioner through the dark, winding streets of London. Its presence was a silent psychological torment. The terror escalated from surveillance to direct action. The sheriff's health began to fail rapidly. He was plagued by constant insomnia, convinced that the cat was always just out of sight, listening. The judge suffered vivid, horrifying nightmares that left him screaming and sweating, dreams where he saw James's face superimposed onto the cat's. The psychological pressure was unbearable, a slow, systematic dismantling of their sanity. The most gruesome account involves the executioner. He claimed the cat was relentless, following him even into the prison itself. One night, while drinking alone to drown his guilt, he saw the cat sitting on the rafters, its eyes glowing like embers. He threw a heavy boot at it and the cat vanished. But the next morning, the executioner was found dead, his body twisted in a position of agonizing fear, with deep, unnatural claw marks scored into his neck, marks too large and precise for any ordinary animal. The Black Cat of Newgate became a physical manifestation of James's undying wrath, a terrifying reminder that some oaths of vengeance are not broken by death. It teaches a chilling lesson. When you commit a deep injustice, the balance of the universe will find a way to correct it. And sometimes that justice comes quietly on four soft paws with the gaze of a murderer. Beneath the sprawling, bustling cities we call home, in the forgotten veins of concrete and rust, a different kind of horror thrives. Not ghosts, not cryptids of the wilderness, but something far more primal, born of filth and shadow. This is the tale of the Rat King, a biological anomaly that, in certain dark corners of the world, transforms from a grotesque cluster into a singular, malevolent intelligence. The year was 1989. In the decrepit labyrinthine sewer system beneath an unnamed Eastern European city, a crew of maintenance workers, tough, hardened men accustomed to the stench and grim realities of their job, were investigating a blocked section. Led by veteran foreman Gregor, they descended into the suffocating darkness, their headlamps cutting weak paths through the oppressive gloom. They found the blockage, a dense, pulsating mass of hundreds of dead rats. But something was terribly wrong. Their tails were inexplicably fused, knotted together into a single, horrific central mass. This was a Rat King, a rare, unsettling phenomenon where multiple rats become entangled. But this one was unlike any Gregor had ever seen. It was enormous, twitching faintly even in death, a grotesque, silent testament to a hidden nightmare. As they began to clear the obstruction, strange things started happening. Their radio communication would cut out, tools would vanish, only to reappear in unexpected, unsettling places. Whispers seemed to echo from the dark tunnels, just beyond the reach of their lamps. The very geometry of the sewers seemed to shift, familiar paths twisting into unfamiliar dead ends. They were getting lost. Gregor, a man who scoffed at superstitions, felt a chilling dread. He swore he saw shadows moving with unnatural speed, not just individual rats, but coordinated masses. The Rat King wasn't just dead biological material. It felt like a dormant mind, now reawakened, was somehow manipulating its surroundings, using the vast network of the sewers as its own horrifying nervous system. It was as if the hundreds of fused rats, once merely a collection of bodies, had achieved a collective consciousness, an evil sentience. The crew was being hunted. They heard the scuttling, not just random squeaks but organized movements circling them, cutting off their escape routes. One of the younger workers, lost in a side tunnel, screamed. When Gregor reached him, the man was covered in bites, not typical defensive bites, but deep, deliberate wounds. He swore he saw not just rats but the glowing red eyes of the Rat King itself, somehow staring out from the collective mass, leading the hunt. They barely escaped, battered and psychologically scarred. The blocked section was sealed, never fully cleared. The official report cited a methane leak and mass rat infestation, but the men knew the truth. They had stumbled into the hidden realm of the Rat King, a living labyrinth under the city. It didn't just exist. It thought, it planned, it hunted. The horror of the Rat King's labyrinth isn't just the revulsion of rodents. It's the terrifying idea that beneath our feet, a hidden ancient intelligence, grotesque and unseen, controls a network of squirming, biting bodies, turning our infrastructure into its own personal, deadly hunting ground. And sometimes, when the city goes quiet, you can almost hear the soft, coordinated patter of 1,000 tiny feet, working together, guided by a single dark will. Some places in the world seem to hold darkness, not just in their history, but in their very stone and steel. In Denton County, Texas, there stands a century-old rusted iron bridge over Hickory Creek, a place known not for its scenic views, but for the chilling legend of the Goatman's Bridge. This isn't just a tale, it's a living nightmare for anyone foolish enough to challenge its resident monster. The legend stems from the early 1900s, rooted in a horrific act of racial violence. Oscar Washburn, a respected black goat farmer, was a beloved figure in the community. He was known as the Goatman due to his livelihood. In 1938, as he approached the bridge after selling his wares, he was ambushed by a group of vengeful Ku Klux Klan members. They brutally lynched him from the very bridge that now bears his monstrous name. But Oscar's suffering didn't end with death. His body was said to have vanished, spirited away by an unknown force. Moments later, reports began of a monstrous half-human, half-goat creature appearing around the bridge. The Goatman is described as a towering, muscular figure with the head of a goat, sharp horns, glowing red eyes, and cloven hooves. It's often seen carrying an axe or a rusty chain. Its voice is a guttural bleat combined with a terrifying human-like scream. It actively hunts, not just appearing as an omen, but as a physical threat. The most common encounters happen to those who dare to cross the bridge at night, especially those who stop in the middle and call out its name. Drivers report their car engines mysteriously stalling. The air grows cold and thick. Then, a chilling knocking begins on the car's roof or windows, accompanied by the distinct sound of hooves clattering on the old bridge planks, growing closer. Some claim to have seen the horned head of the creature peer into their windows, its red eyes burning with ancient rage. Imagine this, you're a teenager dared by your friends to drive onto Goatman's Bridge after dark. You stop, turn off the engine, and say the name. Silence. Then a faint tap-tap on your windshield. You dismiss it as a branch, but then a thump, thump, thump on the roof. Heavy, rhythmic, almost like hooves. The car starts to shake. You glance in the rearview mirror, and for a split second, illuminated by a flash of distant lightning, you see it. A towering, horned silhouette, an axe glinting in its hand, standing right behind your car. The terror is paralyzing. People have reported seeing strange lights, hearing guttural bleats and screams echoing from the woods, and even physical attacks. Visitors have described being shoved, scratched, or having their car windows inexplicably shattered. The bridge itself seems to possess a dark energy, drawing people in, only to unleash its monstrous guardian upon them. The Goatman's Bridge is a terrifying confluence of human cruelty and supernatural vengeance. It's the horror of a legend born from tragedy, a cryptid forged from hatred, forever tied to a place where injustice was committed. It's a chilling reminder that some wounds in history never heal, and sometimes the victims return, not to seek peace, but to exact a terrifying, unending revenge.